Okay, class, today we're going to talk about the different ways of inputting information into AutoCAD using the coordinate system. Okay, we discussed in the previous video on X, Y, and Z, on the origin, and how to every single point that the grid has. Now, there's three different ways of inputting information into AutoCAD. One is going to be through the absolute coordinate system. The other one, it's going to be using the relative coordinate system and also the polar coordinate system. So I want to do all three. I'm going to show you how it works so you can understand the concept. Okay, the origin for X, Y, and Z, it's 0, 0. So we're going to use that as the starting point for all three coordinate systems so you can see how it works. So for the absolute, the way it works is that every point that we input is going to be based off of the origin. So by using the absolute coordinate system as an input, it's going to be basing itself back to the origin, which is 0, 0. Okay? With the relative, the coordinate system, as we put in points, is going to reference back to the previous point. And for the polar, it's going to find the distance and the angle. Okay, so let's do it so you can see how it works. So for the absolute coordinate system, we're going to draw a square right here. Okay, notice that the numbers, these numbers here, change if we use the absolute. See, now they look different on the relative and then look even more different on the polar. We're going to accomplish the same thing, which is a square right here, but we're going to do them using the three different systems. Okay, so the absolute refers back to 0, 0. So we have 0, 0 here at the origin. We're going to have a line that goes from this point to that point. Remember what a line is? It's a segment between 2 points, and that's what we have. We're going to have a line here with one endpoint there and another endpoint here. Okay? So remember X and Y. X is always first and then Y. So if we're going to start our first point for the segment at 0, 0, it's going to have one endpoint here. When we input that number, what it's doing, it says from this point right here is going to go 2 on X and 0 on Y, because we want the line to go straight. We don't want the line to go up. So it's going to go on X, is going to go 2 points or 2 units, and on Y is going to stay at 0. So we're going to have a line right here. So it's going to find this point right there. Now after that, we want a line to go straight up like this. And we have 2, 2. Remember, on absolute, it referenced back to the origin. So we're going to have an endpoint right here of that segment. Now we want a line to go this way. So we need to find that point. So we're going to input 2, 2. So we can find that point right there so we can create this line. All right. Y2, 2 because it's going from the origin. 2 on X, 2 on Y is going to find us that point right there. And then this third line, they're going to have an endpoint there. We want this line there. So we're going to find this point. So we're going to go on X. We're not going anywhere. So we're going to put 0 from the origin. And we want to find that point, which is 2 on Y. So it's going, we're not going anywhere on X, which is going 2 on Y. And then we're going to bring it back to 0, 0. Okay, so an absolute coordinate system, everything's based off of the origin, which is 0, 0. So let's do it. Let's create a line. And if you have an AutoCAD with you, I would advise or recommend you that as I'm doing this or you're watching this video, you do it too. So click on line. And it says here, specify first point. Remember, a line, it's a segment between 2 points. So it's asking us for the first one. Okay, so we know the first one is 0, 0. Now Y, comma, because it's X and Y. And it separates it by commas. So here we're going to input that 0, 0. And we're going to press enter. notice that that first point on that segment, it's already created. So it attached itself to 0, 0. Now we need the other point so we can create the line. AutoCAD is asking us specify next point. The next point is going to be 2, 0. Because from the origin, we want to go 2 on X, 0 on Y. So 2, 0, press enter, and there it is. It found that point, so it shoot the line to that point. Now we need the line to go up. We need to find that point up there. And that point up there, from the origin, we have to go 2 on X and 2 on Y. So let's do that. 2, 2. Enter. And there it is. Notice right now, I'm not using the mouse for anything. I'm just inputting points and the line is automatically creating that shape. Now we need that line to go to the left. So to find that point is at 0 on X, 2 on Y. So we put 0, 2, enter, and it's going to find that point. So it's going to shoot that line where it should go. And then we need that line coming down. So we need the point, the last point, which is also the origin. So here I have two options, or I have several options here. I can input 0, 0. Okay. Or I can just put close right here. If I put close, it's gonna shoot this last point to the starting point. All right, so, but since we're talking about the points, I'm gonna input them. So I'm gonna put 0, 0. Enter. And that's my shape, so that the line command is still active. So I want to close it. I can either press escape or enter to close the command. So I'm going to put enter again, and there it is. So notice that we created this square on the absolute coordinate system. Everything's based off of 0. So we need to find that point. It's 2 on X, 0 on Y. We need to find this point. It's 2 and 2. We find that point. And then we need to find this point. It's 0 on X, 2 on Y, we find that point, and then bring it back. This is more than likely remember this from your geometry class. You just plot points, connect them, and you're done. Okay? Now let's move into the next one. The relative coordinate system. What is the difference? The difference is that an absolute, everything is based off of 0, 0. So the points you're going to find them based on 0, 0. On the relative, it's going to be based off of the previous point. That's why we see an at here. We need to input that. We need to press that so that it works. Okay? FYI, and I'll explain this on a video in the next video. If it's not doing it for you, check that icon right there. If you see that icon that is active, just make sure you deactivate it. FYI, I'm going to come back to that in a bit. All right, so let's do it. Line. First point, 0, 0. Now remember, on the relative, it goes back to the previous point. Okay? So we need to find this point. So in this point, in reality, the previous point is the origin. But just so we can see how it works, we're gonna follow the steps we have here. Now, when you want to put relative or use a relative coordinate system, you have to put an @ sign at the beginning of your 2 points. That's telling AutoCAD that you want to change to relative. So let's do that. I want to put @ just like that, 2, 0. Enter, and I found that point. Now notice here, it's going to be 0, 2. Okay? Which means that it's going to find this point not from the origin, but from this point right here, from the previous point. Okay, so what it's doing here, it's going 0 on X, so it's not going anywhere, it's not going left or right, but it is going 2 on Y, straight up. Okay, notice that is different from the first one. On the first one we had 2, 2. This one we have 0, 2. Because this is based off of the previous point. So from here, we're going to have to go 0. We don't want for it to go left and right, so we're going to put 0 on X and 2 on Y. But again, we have to put the @ sign. So @ 0, 2. All right, 0, 2. So it found the point from this previous point, not from the origin, from the previous point. Now we need the segment right here. Okay, Now notice we have a negative sign there. Why? Because remember we talked about x and y and everything's based off of origin. If we can go right positive, we want to go left, it has to be negative. So we need to find that point right there, and relative, it goes back to the previous point. So it's going to find it from this point right here. What is it going to do? It's going to go -2, which we're going left now. We're not going right, we're going left. So we have to put -2 on x and 0 on y, because now we're not going up or down. So we're going to do that. So at -2, comma 0, and there it is. Okay. Notice it's getting those points from the previous point. So let's close it. Here again, I have the option to put just C and it'll close it for me. But again, so we can look at the inputting system, let's go ahead and do it. So from this point now we have to go down 2 on Y, 0 on X, because we're not doing anything with X. So let's input that. At 0 on X, comma, -2, because we're going down on Y from that previous point. If we put 2, it's going to push it up, but we want for it to go down from that point, so we have to put -2. So there it is, at 0, comma, -2, enter, and there it is. So notice that, look at these points, 0, 0, 2, 0, those look the same, because it's that first segment, it's based off of the origin. But then look at this one, this is 2, 2, this one we have 0, 2, this one we have 0, 2, this one we have -2, 0, and this one we just go back to the origin, 0, 0, and this one we have to go 0, -2. So on the absolute, everything referenced back to the origin, it finds those points automatically, but when we use relative, it's gonna find the point from the previous point. So this is the origin, 2, 0 from this point. From this point now we go up 0, 2. From this point we go left, -2, 0. From this point we go down 0, -2. Okay, so on relative, you'll go back, it will find the point from the previous point that you have inputted. But just remember, you have to put that at sign first. Last one. The last one is polar. Whenever you hear polar, that refers to angles. And before we go into this one, let's review this. And I know you guys know this. Your degrees. By the way, AutoCAD by default sees the degrees counterclockwise. All right? So just as a review, if you have your lines, okay, if your angle, you start at 0, and as your lines start picking up from there, you get to the right angle, which is 90. So from here, from 0 to 90, we have, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 30, 40, 60, until you get to 90. This is 90 degrees. If you go past that, you're going to get to 180. If you go past that, you're going to go to 270. And you continue, you're going to go back to 360, which is also 0, and the circle was completed. That's how you divide a circle in reality. Okay? 360 degrees, you start at 0 and you pick up the degrees until you close the circle. You know this, I'm just reviewing. Now I'm showing you this because now we need angles. For polar, we need angles. Now notice here, the difference with polar is that on polar, you just give it the distance and the angle. Okay? Distance and angle. So we're going to create the same square. Notice that all of them have 2, 2, 2, and 2, because we're going 2 this way, 2 that way, 2 this way, and 2 this way. Notice that I don't have negatives. Okay, so what is going to give the direction to my lines? The angle is going to give the direction to my lines. All right? So let's do line. Starting point 0, 0. Enter. So now we need to get to this point right here. So what we're telling AutoCAD, and we have to input it like this. We're going to put at 2, which means I want the distance of 2 and then the angle 0. Remember, we're right here. Imagine we're right here. We want the line to go straight that way. So the angle is 0. At 2, angle 0. So it's giving us from that point that we inputted, the origin, we're going to go 2 units at the angle 0. Enter. And there it is. See? Now we want the line to go straight up. What is the distance? Still 2. So we're going to put at 2, angle. Now we want the line to go straight up, so it has to be 90 degrees. So we put 90. We now need that line to go left. So the distance, so we put at 2 degrees. What degree? 180. We want the degree 180. And then the last one, we do at distance 2 degree. We want the line to go straight down, so it's 270. There it is. Okay. So on polar, remember, you give it the distance and the angle. And just refer back to this. Distance and angle, so you're gonna put, but you have to put at, distance, and then the angle just like that. Okay, just to recap then. So we have 3 ways of inputting using the coordinate systems: absolute, relative, and polar. Absolute refers back to 0, 0 on all its points. It's gonna find them from 0, 0. On relative, is gonna find it from the previous point that you have, but you have to put the at sign. And on polar, is gonna find those points, but you have to give it the distance and the angle, and it'll find that point for you. Okay, so these are the 3 ways of inputting your points, so you can draw those segments without using the mouse. Okay, any questions? Make sure you ask them when we meet for the live session.